Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to My Health Podcast. I have with me one of my very dear old friends, Trey. I cannot believe we've known each other for, I worked it out, it's 23 years. Can you believe that? So this is a long time coming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's good to see you here.
Yeah, really, really awesome. And we've got so much to dive into. I just had my third breathwork healing journey with you just this week. And I want to really convey to everyone who's listening just how powerful this is. And for me, being a long-time practitioner of yoga and so many healing arts like yourself, Trey, I have to say that this breathwork journey is one of the highest and most efficient ways to access the deeper soul, to clear any of the shadow energies that are still operating within. So I can't rave highly enough about the work that you're doing. But I kind of want to go back in time. Let's take a trip down memory lane because I think it's a laugh for everyone who's listening who knows us quite well. Big shout out in particular to our My Health trainees and graduates. I've put this talk specifically on our private page because I know these are the sort of chats that everyone loves. Also, big shout out to anyone on my Facebook, our My Health Facebook, YouTube, and in particular, all the Earth Heroes crew. We love them so much. Earth Heroes TV.com is the place to go where you get all the uncensored information, and our My Health podcast is housed there, and it's just amazing. You've got other incredible souls there like Dr. David Martin, Sasha Stone, the list goes on, Shay Douglas, Sovereign, they're all there, guys. Make sure you get over to Earth Heroes TV when you can. But we are broadcasting here, there, and everywhere today, just so this information gets out there. As I say, breathwork, one of the highest modalities, healing tools that you can use. But I'll take you back to 1999. Trey and his brother Mark, hey Mark, if you're listening, and myself were put through the absolute most dynamic initiations by our teacher, Martin Ray. We all trained in yoga and Qigong together. And Trey, back in those days, yoga wasn't so popular. It kind of hadn't hit the mainstream so much at that point, even though it's only 23 years ago. And there were the three of us being taken through these 3 to 4 hour training sessions. And I remember holding horse stance. Do you remember horse stance? We used to hold that for like 15 minutes until like we were just shaking, like the prana and the chi was shaking within us. And I remember like absolutely loathing Martin, our teacher. Like at times I just wanted to kill him, you know what I mean? Because he'd put us through these strong initiations. And then afterwards, I'd have so much love for him because I knew that he was basically like just burning away all the toxicity and all the anger and all the turmoil that was within me. So do you want to go back in time and, share some memories of those times together and what we went through as, really young adults actually together?
Yeah, it was interesting, like, how we actually first met. I mean, I was just minding my own business. I was here on the Gold Coast just doing my thing. I was, I guess, living a bit of a party lifestyle. I hadn't really heard of yoga, didn't know anything about it. And then I remember when he approached me, it was here in Surfers Paradise. And he just said, look, I'm teaching this lady, how to do some yoga and how to be a teacher. And it all just, I don't know, sounded a bit sus. I really didn't know what it was all about. So I thought, well, if I'm going to go to this person's house, I better take someone with me. So that's when I grabbed my brother and I said, because he'd actually done a little bit of yoga before. So he was like, oh, heck yes, let's do this. So I remember knocking at the door. I was pretty nervous. And there you were. And I think that first session was so interesting because, like, I hadn't done yoga before. I really didn't know what it was about. So I was thinking, when you go to most classes, even football training is maybe an hour or like an hour and a half or something. And all of a sudden, I remember he had these old textbooks that had like dust all over them and he had them piled up in one of your rooms. And he sort of like just brought them out and he was like flicking the pages. And I'm like, shit, this is going to be like a really long session. Right? And then when he put us into these poses, I thought halfway through, like, that's it, we're finished. And then he brought out this qigong kundalini type of energy, which I didn't understand until now. But yeah, I just remember like my legs, like I thought I was pretty fit and strong from football and all the things I was doing. And like you said, I just remember seeing you bouncing around and I was like shaking. And so I think pretty quickly it's gave me a big shift into this world of, being able to be present when at the time my life was in turmoil, really. Like I was struggling with a whole bunch of things and I just got put straight in the fire. And meeting you was a pretty interesting situation.
Yeah, it was a pivotal
Yeah.
time for us. And I feel now that we're such strong leaders in our communities, we do international trainings, both of us. And I feel like those times were so important because it really had to break down our ego. We had to be put through the fire, as you said, major activations, which we didn't completely understand or understand at the time. It's really, all of these years later, after doing so many, not only conducting the training sessions, but participating in so much training ourselves, that we have that full understanding of what Kundalini is and how this pathway really does lead to that enlightened state, for want of a better word. And that doesn't mean we're holding enlightenment every moment of every day, but we certainly do have the ability to sit in, as we call it in yoga, samadhi, to sit in the superconscious state and realize that we are one with all of life, and to go beyond the rights and the wrongs and the goods and the bads and just, sit in what is. And this is where the breath work comes in so strongly. So obviously for you and I, being yoga teachers for so long, having had that powerful initiation, 20 odd years ago with our teacher, we now kind of realize, having done so much breath work, pranayama as we call it in yoga, we realize how potent it is. But you've taken it to that absolute next level. And for me now, you're like my teacher. It's like, okay, this is the guy that I need to go to in order to get this next level of catharsis or therapy. So how did that all sort of transpire for you? I know that you had the ultimate guru, breathwork guru, Wim Hof, come to your home, like hanging out with him, some pretty phenomenal stories for you as you've now become like a world leader in breathwork. So tell us more about how that transpired for you.
Yeah, I think, it's always a journey. Like what you're talking about is there's always new levels, and it's like new level, and then we expand and we keep going. And for me, like I was, after meeting you and doing these sessions, yoga was the thing. And I just absolutely loved it. I loved teaching yoga. I loved traveling around the world to teach yoga, or even just learn to immerse myself in like as many teachers as I could. There was a time where you sort of came over and met me, and we did a whole bunch of classes that we loved overseas. And but I think I then wanted to expand. I wanted to help people and go like to a different level. And that's when I just wanted to take yoga kind of off the mat a little bit. And I got into life coaching and kind of helping people with things that I had gone through. And so I was pretty content doing my thing and kind of, was really enjoying helping people with different things. And then it was just interesting. It was, I think sometimes just someone just pops into your life when you're sort of ready for something, the teacher comes when the sort of the student's ready. And so like I was just minding my business, doing my thing here on the coast. And literally it was like a knock at the door, and and there was Wim Hof standing at the door. And it's so interesting because in some of the coaching practices, particularly talking about people meeting a partner or something like that, it's like I say, well, someone's not just going to knock at the door and all of a sudden there it all is. But for me, it kind of was that. It was an interesting situation. My great mate at the time was doing a little bit of breath work and on the beach, and Wim Hof and his team sort of heard about it when they were coming to Australia. And so, yeah, just finished doing some yoga. All of a sudden, door knocks and there's Wim Hof. And I'm like, wow, like this is the guy that I had been learning from. I've been practicing some of these breaths. Hadn't fully integrated everything, but I just love for me, I can get quite busy in the mind and thoughts are going everywhere. And then as soon as you start doing like these deep circular breaths, things start to shift and you go to different states. And I think the first time was when I got shown how to do these breaths by Wim and his team, like here at the house. And it was such a profound experience for me to lay down and just only do the breath work, with not a whole lot of guidance, but it was just conscious circular breathing going really, really deep. And my first experience was like I was just tripping balls. Like all of a sudden I got so deep and all these emotions started coming up, and I was crying, and I didn't really know what was going on. But when I came out of it, I just remember looking at, a couple of mates that were in the room, and I just remember just the overwhelming feeling of love. Like I remember just being like, wow, I love you, and I love you, and I love you. And I felt like just so home. And I think something so potent that could help me to get out of my head and out of, at the time, like, a lot of like limiting thoughts and limiting beliefs and things like that. It was like, wow, this is a medicine here. This is something, it's something that I felt like I could use not only continuously to kind of sweep out emotions and some of the heavy, dense feelings that we feel just being human. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to be able to teach other people this? And so that was probably maybe 6 years ago. And then things just took a turn, and I just wanted to kind of learn everything I could about sort of the breath and like, where did the breath come from? And how the heck does it do this to your brain? And why does it make you feel this way?
Yeah, and it is, such a beautiful choice of words. It is a medicine. And, we've all had our plant medicines, maybe not everyone listening, but certainly I think a lot of people have at least tried cannabis or something like that, and, mushrooms and these sorts of things. And particularly, I guess, the mushrooms and the ayahuascas and all of these plant medicines definitely can lead to that phenomenal opening of the third eye, these gateway medicines and that production of DMT. But for me, the breath work is still the highest and most efficient way into that. And I feel like we're at a time in our galactic history where we need to become so self-sovereign that we need to source everything from within. So even the plant medicines may have to fade away. They may have been a useful tool at some point, but let's just say you're somewhere where you can't access that. You can always access the breath, and the breath is free. You can do it in your own private sanctuary at any time. If you want to go on a deep inward journey, this particular way of breathing that you teach is, it's the bomb. It's the absolute bomb. And I know, of all the breathwork guided sessions that I've done, the two of the ones that I've done with you, I absolutely had the DMT release. In fact, one of them, I was so high, and this is the name of this chat, Get High on Your Own Supply. I was a little bit floored how high I actually was. I can't put it into words, just that pure heightened connection I had to source energy. As you say, that the experience of just love for everyone. You're almost giddy in that space, and you realize that nothing external has come into your body in order to have that production of euphoria or the DMT. So just in case people don't know what DMT is, I'll let you explain that. You're more the expert in that.
Yeah, look, the powerful thing that I love about the breath, and I think what helps a lot of people is, like you said, we don't have to be in these deep sessions all the time to, be having these instructed sessions. The breath it's who we are. We come onto this planet in a way where we're free, we're sovereign, but then we also then have this intellect and we have this ego. And, when we come from this space, our role, I think, is to correct the intellect. Our role is to be able to feel free and to be as free as we can. But the nature of who we are as humans, we have duality, and we have the up and down and the black and the white and all these different spaces. But the beautiful thing about the breath is like the gateway from this kind of this stuck self, the lower self. And it breaks the veil and it opens you up to your higher self. And so we get to shift in breath work. We get to shift, from our karma, and we get to move into our dharma. And our dharma is our purpose. It's what we're here to do. It's the truth. It's the alignment. And we know it's our absolute highest vision, our highest purpose, whatever that is. But then the thing is, we get caught, we get stuck in the dross of not only just our own thought and our mind, but then all these other people and agendas and things around us. And then, so every day we have this ability to drop into this potent medicine, which is who we truly are. And when we take, doesn't matter what style of breaths, because there are different styles, you know, there's breath work for therapy, there's breath work for function. And so breath work could take it all these different states, like depending what you would love. You know, I say, for me, sometimes breath work is amazing just when I'm about to go do school pickup. You know, I'll be in the car and I've just got to do some quick breaths. So what happens, and I love what Wim talks about, is we get to be the master of our nervous system. Okay, we can actually shift from being in autopilot. You know, you hear stories of like 95% on autopilot, yet to be present and to truly, truly transcend, to have a tool such as the breath that can actually regulate the nervous system, we actually shift the brain states and how we operate. And then if we can move out of this everyday thinking brain state, like this beta brain state, and we start shifting and start moving up the scale of consciousness, we start going up and up and up, then eventually, if we breathe in and hyperoxygenate enough, and we can take in the deep breath, it's an interesting thing what happens with DMT. So DMT is a chemical compound that, yeah, absolutely. And it's a compound that we have, you know, they say that we have this DMT in the brain and the gut, and it's something that's there at birth. It's something there at death. And we hear about near-death experiences. We hear about people that have seen or felt like this white light. And the great thing about it is if we breathe deep enough, it does something super interesting to the body. So it changes the pH in the body. And so when we keep breathing in a lot of oxygen and we're offsetting a lot of carbon dioxide, then what happens is the brain starts to freak out and it thinks, okay, because we're going deep into a sympathetic, like an arousal state. And we want the arousal state because we're trying to move through and open up our window of tolerance. And our window of tolerance is being able to handle what comes at us. And so the DMT kicks in when there's a shift in pH and the body thinks potentially that we could die. And then all of a sudden, potentially the DMT, dimethyltryptamine, it releases and we start to have potentially visions. We maybe see things, we feel things, maybe we notice people that have crossed over. And it can be quite a cathartic release as well, because you know, we hold our history within our body. And as we know from yoga, we hold our history in our fascia. And so, you know, when we can open up to a deeper aspect and we have the ability to stay with our breathing, then we open up and transcend. We get to go to a different portal. We go into like a cosmic or an astral realm. And that, I think, is for the everyday person that's never done breath work, or they maybe don't know how to get out of the busy mind. I call this like one of the most profound, like moving meditations that you can do. And the breath is our life. It's who we are. And so that's why it's so profound, because it's very quick.
It's just phenomenal. Describe for us, Trey, what goes on within the breathwork group sessions that you run. And I absolutely adore those. As much as I love, you know, you gave me a private session the other day, which was equally powerful. I went back into Lemurian times. I saw us in a very feminine culture, and I saw that the masculine had to assert himself, and we went through the Atlantean epoch, and the masculine kept growing in stature and eventually went rogue, and we descended into this timeline now, and where the masculine's really distorted. And I mean the masculine within the women too. You know, we're not blaming men. This is not at all. It's the concepts of polarity. And you know, and I saw how we're all coming back to center now and ascending through the middle pathway. So, you know, that was pretty phenomenal in itself, as well as a lot of my father issues and a lot of feminine wounds came up. You know, it was all there within this one session. But I know when I'm in the group session, when I'm hearing everyone else breathing around me, that in itself can can be another conductor into higher pathways, as well as when people are crying. It's very interesting because it's gonna, if for the toughest people around there that won't crack and won't cry, I tell you, it's gonna make you get into your heart and release those emotions. So describe the group sessions for us, because I mean, you're rocking it. Like, you, every single session you do is just like packed out. It's so busy.
Yeah, I think, the group sessions, the potency, I think, is, even before you come to the session, because you know that you're signing up for something, and you know that, you want to work through some of the heaviness. Potentially you want to work through some of the blocks. If you know that there's something that you feel like is maybe slowing you down, or even standing in the way of your highest vision or your dharma, well, coming to a group session, it's what I think it's our lineage. We come from this really beautiful deep space of this indigenous, I guess, this tribal history. And so we can do this lone wolfing. We can go alone, but at the end of the day, our history states that if we go alone, we're going to die. And so when we come to a collective with a common purpose, and it's like the ancient times where we get around that campfire and we hold each other and we know that we're in this. And as long as you talk to the group and, you get everyone on the same path and you let them know what they could experience, I think the beautiful thing is when you say to people, look, we're here to breathe together as a group. We are here to help heal our lineage, our timelines, but we'll also help our children and those that are to come in front of us. And so when we do come into the group, it's interesting dynamic, because sometimes we, I believe that, we have triggers that come from within us. It's not that someone's really triggering us. It's something within us that potentially is not free. And so when you come to a group situation and people start breathing in this, this deep conscious circular way, something really profound starts to happen. Is we get to shift the reference point on our consciousness. And so we come out of this prefrontal cortex, we move deep into the limbic brain, where we get to process emotions. So in a group setting, then all of a sudden people start processing all of these emotions and all of these past timelines. And the great thing about that is we're all purging, we're all releasing things that we've all been through or we're all going through. And so as a collective, there's this cog, and this cog just keeps building and kind of like winding up. And there could be people in the room that maybe are reminding you of someone, and that's to sit with that, is to realize that whatever's happening in the room, that you can come back to this breath. And I think that's also potent, because if you can do it in the room, then you can kind of do it anywhere. And so as the energy starts building and people start getting to these cathartic states, the reason it's really happening is because we've all been through some shit. We've all been through some, we've all been through different traumas and different, or even just the thought of maybe our life might not work out the way we thought it was going to be. And so we notice that energy. And so what starts to happen is, wherever we actually had the trauma in the first place, whether we were running away from something, whether we wanted to fight something, whether we were freezing, these patterns start to surface. And as they start to surface, the breath work, if it's done right and if it's taught right, then we get to complete these trauma cycles. We get to complete these bond cycles. And then as we go through it, people purge and release. And it could be, you might hear like people screaming. You might have someone next to you kind of rolling around and thumping the ground. Maybe someone sits up and they just starts, hitting a pillow. And what they're doing, and what we do as instructors, is we're allowing people to move through these cycles so we can actually get a release, okay? Because the nervous system is actually releasing, and then we actually come back to homeostasis. And I think this is the great thing, is when you come into a group, the group starts to understand that it's the individual nervous system that was ready for this experience. And then it can just go to many levels. And then, as you know, you could probably sense that when someone else starts to go there, then you start to go there, and you realize that we're, as brothers and sisters here, we're breathing for each other and a new future, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I absolutely adore about the way you lead it in those group sessions, is that you're always reminding us that it's both microcosm and macrocosm. So for all the people in the community, not just, outside the studio walls, but it's like for everyone on planet Earth, we are breathing at that time for the collective. And it feels so potent. I think you use that word as well. It's such a great choice of word. It feels so potent to know that we're all one ultimately. We all mirror each other. So if there's a few courageous souls that can dive in and do the inner work, it creates a template almost for others to sort of being drawn into that vortex. Yes, they still have to do their inner clearing. We can't necessarily do it for them, but we can create a portal or an opening where it's safe. It's like, hey, here's the way. Come in and sit in your emotions. You're safe here. In fact, we get to a point on our healing journey where we feel unsafe if we don't dive into those emotions. Everything gets reframed at some point. Yeah. Whereas we were distracting ourselves from our emotions. We were drinking too much, eating too much chocolate cake, many people watching porn, whatever they're doing to distract themselves, even scrolling too much on social media, whatever it is. We have to get hip to the groove that, hey, every time I do that, I actually feel more unsafe because I'm negating that deeper part of me that's yearning to be seen and to be held and to be acknowledged. All of our inner little girls and inner little boys are just waiting desperately. Please pick me up, take me with you. I have something to say. I have the wisdom that you've been ignoring for so long. And so all these deep dives, this inner journey work is it's so profound and it's so beautiful. And you really arrive at that space of feeling so safe. And I think I haven't liked that word for a couple of years because it was bastardized, with the mainstream narrative of stay home and, stay safe. And it's like, I remember saying, I don't want to be safe anymore. I don't want to be safe. I want to go outside of the box. I'm not into that word anymore. But there is a sacredness to feeling safe, and that's an internal resonance. That's a feeling within yourself that you are safe, that God, Goddess has your back no matter what. But the only place that you will ever find that is within yourself. So this breath work, it's really like riding the spirit. It's like getting on Aladdin's magic carpet. You're going on a journey, whether you like it or not. And the journey that you're going on is so profoundly deep within self. And it's almost like that diamond-esque essence that you truly are gets kind of rubbed and then polished. And it's like, oh, there I am again. I was there the whole time. I just layering it up with all of these, you were talking about it before, with all of these constructs that are one big illusion. But, breathing for the collective, what's going on in the collective, Trey, just from your personal heart? How would you describe what's happening at this point in our galactic history? I mean, I know I'm probably going a bit woo-woo there, but what's going on, from your perspective? What's happening for the humans?
Yeah, look, I just really think for me, I feel like it's just a huge upgrade, and I think these are cycles that have been around for forever. And, my teacher always reminds me of the fact that, we exist in time and this is the time, but we belong to eternity. And so when we tune into this feeling and we tune into this knowing that all these moments in time, everything in time, it has to come through this one moment, like right now. And so I think, yes, there are things happening right now, but until there's that perception of whether this is good or bad or whatever it is, until that moment, there's just pure chitta. And chitta is just pure consciousness. And so it always exists. Pure consciousness always exists. There's always going to be some type of an energy of light. There's going to be an energy of the dark or the night. And I believe that it's our opportunity here is to then, as a piece of this consciousness, what does it mean to us, like truly, and what's our responsibility of what we can do in this moment? And we could go around in circles and we could look at the time frame and go, well, this is what's happening. Or I believe we can completely tune into consciousness and we can be open to upgrading. But within, I believe, the upgrades, there's going to be stuff come at us. So it's not like we have to push things aside and just be all just light, like everything is just so incredibly amazing and everything is just like positive. I think that there's all the sides to it. And I think what you said so beautifully well is with the breath work, it helps us to hold ourselves. And that was something that I struggled with so much, that I didn't know how to truly hold myself. And I think that's what's happening at a collective level right now, is we're being forced and shaken, so cliche, to awaken, so that we can truly hold ourselves, so that Mother Gaia can hold herself, so that we can tune into what this frequency is really about, and we can lead the way for our children, for my son, for all these people. And so I think the responsibility is just to really keep coming back to consciousness, and to just keep coming back to the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are has all these different sides. And we can go down one path and we can put a lot of energy on something, or we keep coming back to our breath, we keep coming back to our medicine, and we just keep sweeping the energy. We just keep sweeping the energy. But I think when we can truly put one hand on our heart and one on our body here, our belly, and literally just be like, okay, cool, there's things happening right now, but what do I need? What do I need right now? And if the whole world could be in this place right now where we're holding ourselves and say, well, what do I need right now? Rather than going for those quick fixes or those short things or whatever it is, we can actually stay in that space, that sovereign space, then I think people just keep awakening. And so I think it's like anything. It's like the scales of consciousness. I believe we're moving up. And isn't it interesting now that, yoga and, all these different breath works and green smoothies and all these amazing things are just freaking everywhere right now. Like on every street corner, there is something about health and consciousness and raising the vibration. So I guess for me, my thought is, well, we're evolving. And I think we are kind of like these iPhones. We've gone from an iPhone, I think years ago I had a 4 and then a 5 and a 6, and we're up to whatever they are, 13 or whatever it is. And I think we're evolving, and I think our children are evolving, and I can see it within my son that we have this ability to tap into this intuition. We have this ability to tap into something that's far greater. And this is why I think that the breath work and potentially some of these medicine journeys, whatever it is, there's just an energy that's expanding.
Yeah, and I love how you talk about the duality, and it's not always positive. This is the thing, because I feel like we've hit an era. This is what's been going on for me, Trey, for the last couple of years. Since the world got shut down in 2020. I mean, I'd had a profound awakening. Probably just prior to the time that we met. I was so off the rails because of taking drugs and just being promiscuous and party life and living in London, and had 2 breakdowns in a row. And there was my mum's comment before, mum had to fly over to London and come and save me. I was in such a bad way, but it was a trauma, but it was also an awakening at the same time. I had so many higher spiritual codes drop in, but it was so scrambled I couldn't sort of get it all in line. But I knew something was happening. I had to be broken down to awaken, and really that's when I was so messed up. I couldn't go. I had all these skills. I was a psychologist. I could do all these things, but I couldn't work for anyone else. It was like, there's no way. I started my health, and it was like, that's me. I've got to work this in my own way, and I've got to, first of all, heal myself, and then facilitate healing for others, and eventually went into all the trainings. And, all of these years later, like you, we've got all these kind of multi-limbed ways that we essentially talk about the same thing and teach the same thing. But it's really interesting, because that next big pivotal awakening for me in 2020, what happened for me, and what I'd like to speak to the collective, and more so because we are streaming this to our My Health trainees and graduates, is that there is such a thing called being fake woke, and it's really causing a major issue in the spiritual community. And if we don't get on top of it, we are going to play out the same program again here on Earth of division, because so many people are having their green smoothies, as you mentioned. They're going to their yoga, they're doing it all in good faith, but they are not dropping into, and this is where the breath work comes in that you do, they are not dropping into the gunk and the murk and the destruction, both within self, but what we're seeing in the collective. And I have to speak up and say that I am really over the spiritual bypasses. I know that I'm guilty of it, through those 20 odd years before I had this second big awakening, where we're just love and light it away. If we just focus more on love and light, then all that darkness will go away. But I've come to know that there are many, many beautiful, loving humans here on the planet. So therefore, if we could just love and light it away, we'd be fine. But we're not fine. We're not fine. There's a cabal, or whatever we want to call it, the so-called elite players, the parasites is the better way to call them, that are siphoning human energy. We've got, child sex trafficking and all of these horrendous multi-billion-dollar industries that are, so many love and lighters are turning a blind eye from. And, I've just kind of had enough. And I'm almost ready to walk away from my own business, because I don't want to be associated with the fake wokers, with the love and lighters who just refuse to dive into the murky waters. That's where I've got to in my trajectory. And so for me, doing the breath work with you, it's been almost like a reboot, because you will take us into those spaces. You won't pretend like none of that's happening. You always acknowledge it. And, how can the breath therefore help us feel safe to address both the inner turmoil, but also what's going on in the outer reality? I know that's a big question for you, but we've got to go there.
I love it. That is answer that in a couple of seconds here. Look, it's if I just think of it in a,
we'll just read out this comment before you say anything, because this is really good. We tried it in the 60s, but we're led astray then. We're getting this right this time. Gaia wants to ascend and is supporting us to get there. Yeah. Thank you, Danielle. That's absolutely beautiful. Great.
Yeah, I think, if you just look at a micro level, just to get started, I really think that the best thing we can do is to take radical responsibility immediately. Take a stock take, as you will, of what's really happening, like individually for us. And that's not easy, because, see, it's an interesting path. When I found yoga, very quickly I thought I was really spiritual. And we are all spiritual. I mean, caveat, how could we not be spiritual? But for me, I thought I was really spiritual. I loved a lot of stretching, and I loved, for me, I loved doing a lot of the asana, but I didn't. It's interesting, because I love breathwork now, but things like pranayama was just, well, that's not kind of get what I want. I want to get the biceps from doing all the yoga, and I want all this sort of stuff. And then I think we evolve. We go through stages, and we go through ages. We move through different spaces. But it's almost like things are speeding up now, and we're being shown our stuff really quickly. Now, that's a really powerful place, but I think we're starting to move from a time where, like knowledge was such a potent space that we moved through in different areas, different industries and things like that. And I feel that Mother Gaia, which is an energy, it's a body, it's all of it. I believe that we're coming back to then having to look at our own Mother Gaia, like our own system, because we are related. We are part of that. We're all a part of that. And so I think when we truly can start to honor and acknowledge the part of us that is the shadow side. And this is why I love breath work, is because when you get to go deep, there's no escaping it, because you're going to have to face your stuff. I first started teaching functional breath work, and I love functional breath work, and I do it every day. I help athletes. I help many people with the functional side of breathing. How do we become breathers where we have efficiency, longevity, we breathe in 4 directions, and we breathe in a space where we start to feel great with our life and our energy. But then when we go to the next level, we go to the therapeutic breath work. That's like a deep soul level, because each and every one of us is so potent. We hold the keys, we hold the codes, we hold all of it within us. But there's parts that are stuck in this physical matter. And the way to, I believe, to start freeing up this physical is if you're aware of the shadow and you're aware of like what's going on, then the body doesn't lie. Nature doesn't lie. If things aren't going so well out there in nature, then it just gets destroyed, right? Because it's not needed anymore. And so if we're not evolving, then we're not needed anymore. So when we keep coming in, and I think we start to look at this, then we can start to evolve and we can start to really open up. And so, you know, it's really interesting because there's a book out there that says the body keeps the score. Okay. The earth keeps the score, right? Our rivers, our forests, it all keeps the score. And so the body keeps the score. Like I said, we have what's called the issues in the tissues. And this stuff is sitting deep within the fascia. Now, the nervous system doesn't lie. If you just did, you know, I love doing this in the morning just to clear some things. You know, I have an intention in the morning. Okay, for the day, this is how it's going to be. And then I just start doing some conscious circular breathing in bed. And whatever was in the way, it's like just a little, like a pop, like a tss, and something just starts to free up. And so when we do this on a deeper level, you know, with the breath work, I think we really get to witness, and we get to hold ourselves. And, you know, it's different because as humans, particularly in the West here, you know, when something triggers us or when something dramatic happens in our life, we don't just usually shake it off. It's like we kind of hold it, and it's almost like becomes our freaking identity. Yet the truth is, you know, that there's a great book out there why zebras don't get ulcers, because zebras and animals in the wild, what do? They literally think they're going to die every single day out in the savannah. And when they do get to those points of the nervous system, the fight and the flight, very quickly you'll notice that they shake all the energy off. They shake it off, right? But when, as humans, do we get a chance to fully shake everything? And breath work it's the way to shake things up. It's the way for you to actually start releasing these patterns. But, and this is what I wish for everyone, because for me, like I said, the evolution was to go in more into the embodiment. And I thought I was embodied. I really did. I really thought I had everything, you know. And then relationships come along. And when I say relationship, again, relationship with Mother Gaia, relationship with yourself, relationship with food, relationship with time, relationship with a significant other. And then all of a sudden, hey, there's the mirror. And then you realize, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not as free as I thought I was. And then it's like, holy shit, do I step into embodiment and truly feel it and heal it, or old codes, and do I just keep spinning around just doing the same thing over and over and over, which is the previous mentality, the previous, I guess, initiations of who we were, which is to be more in the mind. And I think when we can come back into the heart, and we can come back into the heart of Gaia, and we can come back into the heart of the universe, and we can come back into the heart of this incredible quantum field, then I think we're going to see a different reality, because all of a sudden we're going to be at a different frequency, and everything we start seeing is just emanating from our consciousness. And again, I say what my teacher says is that all moments in time have to come through this moment in time. And so the breath work, it's a way to go cosmic. It's a way to go astral. And I think it's the most amazing way to kind of sweep things out without having to go to the jungles of the Amazon or places like that.
You described that so well. That was epic. But yeah, radical responsibility. I mean, if we're not taking responsibility, then who is? If we're not invoking the highest divine codes, then who is? You know, it's ultimately there is only self. There is only this one consciousness residing within all of us as a point of attention somewhere on the continuum. I mean, there's aspects of self that are sitting in the highest dimensional frequencies in that singularity, just having an experience. And then there's the aspect, there's all the multidimensional selves that we can plug into at any time. And the breath work really helps you to get to know your archetypal energy or your multidimensional selves. And, we've got all sorts of fun characters within self, from the light side as well as the, dark side. And when I say dark side, that's not a negative. In fact, this is where I'm talking about before about the bypassing. It's like, hey, we better get in touch with the dark side because we might have a dragon energy sitting in there that needs to come through right now and burn off some of this dross, as that great word you used before, burn off some of this toxicity, both within self and in the collective. And for people that get overwhelmed, how we change out there, keep going inward. Just keep going inward. That's all that you need to do.
Yeah.
But Leanne, this is a great comment. Then blissful orgasmic energy through breathing and sound. And it's absolutely what is happening. It is an orgasmic state of consciousness that you go into. And something that's really worth talking about because people fear the orgasmic state because sexuality has become so distorted on the planet. And yet, when we consider who we were in singularity, choosing to go to duality, to have the experience of opposite or separation, we had to explode out of dark matter. That's the, you were saying it the other day to me, Trey, you were saying the Shakti energy, the sapphire energy, whatever we call it, explodes out of Shiva, out of the dark matter. That's an orgasmic explosion. So it's encoded in it. It's who we are. And yet we've all got it so wrong as a collective. And, this is where I talk about some of the practices going on the planet. Like we're getting into absolute depravity with the sexual energies, but bringing it into restoration, bringing the polarities of light and dark together, we will ascend through the center. And this is where breathing really comes into it, because what happens when you're in an orgasmic state is that your breath is going to gear up. That's just, you can't control it at that point when you're in an orgasmic state. So it's almost like, when you're doing the breath journeys, it's almost as if you're making love to self. It's almost along those lines, isn't it? Because that breath is really getting quite dynamic for many people, even though they're purging a lot of their darkness. At some point they may feel orgasmic as the energy rushes up through the chakra system, and not just the chakras in the body. We're in an age now where we're going galactic chakras as well. It's like this experience, as you said before, of that quantum reality. So tell us a little bit about your personal experiences now from what you've been through, having done so many breathwork sessions. And have you felt that orgasmic state at some point break through in your breathwork sessions?
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point you're making about the energetics of pleasure and the energetics of joy. And yeah, like you say, I think in the past that it's been shamed upon, but it's how we're created. It's who we are, and this is something to expand upon. And the breathwork, the lineage that I've learned, it comes from what we call the Yog Vedantic tradition of breathwork, and so it really is all about tantric breath, and tantric breath is all about it moves into what we call the Shri value. And the Shri value is that we're here for pleasure, and we're not only here just for pleasure, but we're here to live our highest state, and we're here to keep expanding. So when we go into these deep breathwork cathartic states, we're actually breathing in from a very special place. And if you know how to access this place, then you can actually access the infinite potential that you are, right? And so when you move down deep into the chakra system, if you could just imagine that we have these lights moving up through our body, and they all work synchronistically. And as we move the energy up from the base of our spine, then it moves up and we awaken and we awaken. And what sits at the base of the spine is our infinite seat of potential, our Kundalini energy, our Shakti energy. And so for me, what's really been the awakening is learning more about the harmonics of the masculine and the feminine. And I love, in India, when I've done the training, we talk a lot about Shiva, we talk about Shakti. And so there were times, particularly from my past, I come from, as you know, a background of football and a background of the masculine, the pushing, and I really have had to learn more about like what the masculine is. The masculine, I didn't realize the masculine is actually a centered Shiva state of holding capacity. And then Shakti is everything that moves around all of that. And so when people are moving in the body and they start opening up into these cathartic sexual states, and a great way to put it is, I guess the godfather of bioenergetics is a guy, Willem Reich, and he actually talks about this, which is the code of orgasm. And the code of orgasm is when you're doing the deep breath work, then when you get to these deep states, it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And it is that state of full pleasure. And as you know, it's not just a pleasure in the base chakra. It's a pleasure that then moves out to the whole body. Then it goes out to the room and it keeps going beyond. And I believe our role is to how much capacity do we have within our nervous system to hold that. And so we have to just keep breathing through these states and actually allow it to be an infinite level of this pleasure state, rather than a container where we have to kind of hold it for moments or with ourselves or with other people. It is our true state. And so if we can just keep breathing and having this awareness, then I believe, we start to move out of the cycle of shame. We start understanding that it's who we are, it's how we're created. And we get to come, it's a huge energy that you could release if you've been, stuck in these chakras. And as we evolve out of the dense energy of the roots and the sacral, and then we start moving, and this is the big one I had to work through with my experience, was moving through the solar plexus, moving through things like self-worth, and my journey's been like, self-esteem, and being able to move out of procrastination and actually move in to having more willpower and having what we call the follow-through effect. And that comes through raising the dense 3 chakras. So then we can actually move through the heart, which is the bridge to the light. And then we start moving up. And as we evolve, the higher states of consciousness go up. Then what's the next level for us? Well, usually it comes into the throat, the voice. And what does that mean? Then we get to be leaders and speakers and healers of this Gaia energy. And so I believe we come out of the dense, we go up into the light. Isn't it natural that we want to speak out? Isn't it natural that the whole world wants to stop speaking, control us, and keep us in this little box? But the truth is, why don't we just open up and let it come all the way out? And that's, I think, the fear on the planet. And so if we can move through the energy systems and actually one by one simultaneously open up these energy centers, then the next thing is that galactic consciousness, we start opening up. And that's when we're out of our karma, we're in our dharma, we're in that space. And then we're just a beautiful flow, like a river on Mother Gaia that just keeps flowing. And we don't have to keep wanting and needing and pushing and grasping and trying to hold on. All of a sudden, we are the flow of this energy. We are the energetics. And so the thing about the breath, and that's what Leanne says, is it is an infinite space of potential. And all you have to do is be open to it, aware of it, and let it cycle through without trying to manipulate it and control it. It's got to be this technique. It's got to be... Just allow it. And then if you can just hold yourself and let the movements come, then guess what? It's no different than when Mother Gaia gives us an earthquake, or Mother Gaia gives us some huge, what appears as a catastrophic event. It's a discharge. And as we discharge, we come back to homeostasis. And we come back to homeostasis, then not only do we heal it, then everybody else gets to heal it. And so that's kind of been, I guess, the passion that I've had because of all the shit and the dross that I've had to go through to keep moving through it. And it's no different than sweeping out the house, and every day you still got to do it. But if we can all freaking put our hands up and say, I commit, I'm in, and I want this for everybody, then yeah, I get a bit excited about that.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped just hearing you talk. Like, yeah, why wouldn't you? Like, what else are we doing on the planet at the moment? This has been the mantra in my mind. What else am I doing? What
Yeah,
else is there to do? Like my ego has been whacked around enough. For
yeah,
so long that honestly I've got nothing left to prove. I've been, particularly in the last couple of years, from speaking up, I've been trolled so much that I tell you, it knocks the ego out of you pretty quickly. It's like, well, I
yeah,
got no reason to be liked from anyone externally. All I have is self-love. That's all I have. And when I embody that, and when I choose, no matter what, to love myself, despite all the mistakes, and despite, getting it wrong a zillion times a day,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
phenomenal. Like, I'm in that safe held space again. I love
yeah.
what you say about the sexual energy, because as I was listening to you, the way you went so infinite with it and into that,
Mm,
how much can our nervous system hold? Because we have been conditioned to quell it as soon as we feel sexual impulse. Oh, quick,
yeah,
masturbate, or have some sex with someone, and quick race to have the orgasm. And then we're feeling empty. And if you have an orgasm out there, guys, like, I'm not saying that's wrong. There's a time and a place for that
yeah.
shared experience too. But
Mm,
how much can we actually rise this energy now? How much can
mm,
our nervous system contain this
mm.
expansion of bliss and pleasure, and that infinite perpetual orgasmic state? That's what we're moving into as the polarities come together. This is what ascends the planet, and this is
Yes.
what it takes us into the personal ascension. So, I mean, just listening to you, Trey, you're such a master of your craft, and I know that you live it. I know that's the main thing with you, that you live it, you practice it. I've seen your evolution over these 20 something years, as you would have seen mine as well. And
Yes.
it's just a beautiful thing to behold. And just as your sister, and I kind of want to cry saying this, because I really feel like you, Mark, and I, we are brother and sister. I always felt that, like, back in the day when we were doing those rigorous training sessions,
Yeah.
going through the initiations of fire,
Yeah.
like, these are my bros. Like, we've got
Yeah.
each other back. Like, we saw each other go through some pretty hardcore things, and we've had our issues along the way as we figured it out.
Yeah.
And that's been wonderful. Like, we've just got such a deep connection between us. And I just want to thank you from my heart for being like a true man, true masculine on this earth, rising up, doing the inner work. I was so proud, like, the other night when I was in your group breathwork session, and there was this row in front of you. So it was you as the teacher, and there was this row
Mm,
in front of you of these, like, proper warriors, like all
mm,
men, big muscles, like proper dudes, and they're in there and they're breathing, and I thought,
mm.
wow, this, I got goosebumps just talking about. This is a changing
Me
of the
too.
guard.
Yeah.
Yoga's so feminine. You've taught yoga for years. I've taught yoga for years. We've always teach the ladies. Love the ladies. Thank God for the goddesses. You know what I mean? Like, they've been carrying it through. But it's
Mm.
like something shifted, and the good, strong, masculine leaders like yourself, you're bringing the real men in. Who are probably still drinking the beer and watching the footy, and good on
Yep.
them, but they're
Yep.
willing now to do this inner transformation. And the men, are leading at the moment. Like, we weren't sure through 2020. Like, where are the good men? Like, get your freaking masks off, you dudes. And, like, grow his head, scratch your balls, sniff your fingers, do whatever you got to do. Like, let's go. Come on. Take those football codes, whatever you learn, it's all good, but, like, use it now. What are you doing this for? And,
Yeah.
yeah, so I just want to say, congrats to you. I know everyone will be pumped listening to you talk, and want to dive deeper into, the breath work. And oh, thanks, Mum. Tears of beauty from you too. Oh, thanks.
Hey, Zoe.
Well, Mum's been with us the whole journey. So
Gosh, I remember Zoe's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's so amazing.
Absolute amazing healer.
She is,
Yeah.
isn't she?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Carrie. Like, and this is probably what I would say to, well, if you just talk about, like, to men, is, we all of us, we're not going to get it right all the time, and it's impossible. Like, we're human, so in this earth suit, we're imperfect. And I think if we can embrace a culture of vulnerability, authenticity and openness. I think that helps the masculine codes of then other people feeling safe in terms of the feminine. But I think it's scary also for the masculine, because how do we soften and how do we relax into the feminine? But if we can actually embrace the Shiva and the Shakti, the feminine and the masculine, and if we can train our nervous system to understand which ones they are, then there's this potency. And and I have to thank you, because something you taught me many, many years ago was that it's called a yoga practice. And the reason it's called a yoga practice is because it is just that. It's you're not gonna get it perfect. We're practicing. You can never master it. You'll never attain it, but it's something that you can commit to. And I believe that if we keep evolving, and I believe that progression is what keeps us as humans moving ahead. And so it's just to accept all these parts of us. And I think the big key for me is to realize that, haven't made it. And in that sense, and to know that we can tune into this space and energy. And I've just got so much gratitude for you, because this entire journey, it started with you, and a lot of gratitude for my brother, because I was in a pretty unconscious place. Like I said, I thought Surfers Paradise, moving from South Australia, would be a pretty cool place to be unconscious, and I did, and I lived that, and so the passion comes from knowing it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and it always will be. And I guess for each and every one of us, just to put our hand up and say, yeah, cool, we commit to this. But every moment in time is just a new moment to choose, to re-choose, recalibrate, bring the codes in. And then I think that's the inspiration, to use whatever tools or practices that can help you, and then pass that baton on to other people, our children and everyone around us in our community. And then I think that keeps bringing us back together. So yeah, Carrie, it's just like, just the things you showed me, and the lessons. And like you said, even some of the, if we ever, there were energies that were in all over, whatever was happening, it was like, what amazing lessons in relationship, in conversation, and to come back and just honor each other and the paths that that we've had. And so it's very powerful. I feel very blessed.
Yeah, so blessed. And yeah, I mean, I remember coming over to when you were living in LA, and coming over there, and like you picked me up at the airport, and you're like, we're going to a power yoga class. I'm like, dude, I need to sleep. And you're like, no, you'll be right. Like, just, you were like, even then you were just like, right. And we went into this power yoga class in LA, and it's like 200 people in the class, which, for me, I was so like, we were lucky if we got 10 people, 20 people back in those days. And I'm like, what is this? And I just remember like this huge group energy, and everyone like breathing and sweating together. And it was just, all of these things that we've done together and been through together, and all these, things that just kept awakening us and supporting each other's journey. So, tribute to us, and all of I'm actually seeing like some people commenting here who I knew like back in these days. It's really interesting, that you've turned up on this chat now. So, shout out to, there's so many of us that just, held true to each other and just supported each other through this. I mean, I think we always knew we were on a mission, but it's like, so many of us now, millions and millions of us now, like really do know what this mission specifically is for, and why we've been practicing and almost rehearsing for this time on earth. But, again, I just want to say for anyone listening, if you feel drawn to diving into breathwork, for me at the moment, this is your ultimate practice. Trey is definitely, in my opinion, the one to be led by, not just because I'm biased, but, because, I've done a lot of different therapies with a lot of different people. And for me, Trey is definitely the leader in this way. So you can, maybe follow him on Facebook or wherever your portals are, or go directly to his website, treywilliams.com.au. Trey, you've actually got a breathwork teacher training coming up. So if anyone wants to learn, particularly if you've been experienced in yoga or other healing arts for some time, you feel, okay, you're ready to take it to that next level, you want to conduct your own workshops, you will train people in the various, there's so many different various breathwork techniques that you offer, but you'll package it up where people will feel very confident to go and then run their own workshop. So just have a quick chat about that before we sign off.
Yeah, so what we do is it's an 8-week process, and I've sort of brought together the modalities of the Himalayan breath work and also the transformational breath work. So you get to do, both sides of the breath. So it's all about functional at the start, how to master the nervous system, and then start to move deeper into the astral and the cosmic realms. And then we finish off the course in the lay down transformational, where we get to release these discharges. And so it's just a safe way of learning how to hold space for the medicine, because each person already knows it. And then how do we lead this? How do we have the confidence and the safety to be able to help people to shift patterns through breath work, to actually reprogram through the breath work? So yeah, I'm excited. We've got the very last one that's going to be in this format that's getting started in, just over a week from Tuesday, which is on the 20th of September. So it's the very last one we're going to run in this way before things shift a bit for like mid next year. So yeah, I'm excited. And the people that come, we call it a breath family, because it really is a transformational journey, because you get to do the deep breath work as a participant, because I'm a big believer that the space that you can hold for yourself is directly proportional to the space that you can hold for other people. So we work on that first, and then we work on being the practitioner.
Yeah, beautiful. So, yeah. And it's online. So, there's heaps of people here I can see from America, and someone was from the Philippines. Hello. And, I know from later on, there'll be people from the UK checking this out as well. So, and anywhere, Canada, Asia, anywhere at all, like there's no limitation these days, thanks to technology. So you can join in on that course. So, well, thank you, brother. Love you so much, and really appreciate this enlightening chat. And yeah, you're absolutely on fire.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much, Carrie. Yeah, it's been so great catching up.
Yeah, love to everyone out there. Thanks for the beautiful comments, guys.
All right, big love, guys.
See you later.